I saw Gran Turismo this week. It is not a video game. It is, in fact, a movie that some marketing would say is based on the video game, but it's not really based on the video game because it's a movie about real people who played the game. But then, if you've seen the trailer for it, you kind of know the premise. It's about a guy who was really good at Gran Turismo, so good that he got invited to a camp where like the best of the sim racers got to compete for an opportunity to do actual racing. I think the trailer is actually a little bit misleading because the trailer makes it have a heavy focus on the whole like GT Academy, which is where they got all the guys together and were training them. That's still the first act of the movie, and it's kind of glossed over. Like the way the trailer makes it seem is like, oh, you're gonna learn about like how out of his element he is once he stops doing sim racing and gets behind the wheel of a car. But we don't actually see the first moment that he drives a race car, because the whole time, once he's in the academy, the whole thing is like a montage where we're just seeing other people wash out and seeing just little shots of them getting used to the cars. But I would have really liked to see a moment where Jan Mardenborough, who's the main character, I would have liked to see his first time behind the wheel of an actual race car, and we don't see that moment. There's, like the trailer talks about is like, oh, you're experiencing more G-forces than an astronaut blasting off to the moon would feel, and we don't really see that either. The experience that we get from Jan behind the wheel is more often than not just like, sometimes they'll do like a UI overlay of his perspective because he's so used to sim racing, so we get into his head, and it's like as he's racing he might see like racing lines painted on the road ahead of him, because that's like how he has it set up in the game. There's a scene early on where he is driving his brother and friends home after a party, and he's the only sober one, but like cops are after him and they get pulled over, but like the cops is talking to like another car first because they like had a side collision. And when he realizes that the cops had pulled over the other guy first, he's like, I can't go to jail tonight. I have my test raced to go and join the academy tomorrow. So he escapes. And the whole thing is kind of filmed like it's Grand Theft Auto. Like he even gets like a little splash thing saying cops avoided. I've never played Gran Turismo myself. So I as far as I'm aware, it's just like racetracks, right? It's not like there's nothing like Need for Speed or Grand Theft Auto where you do like cop evasion or anything like that, to my knowledge. I could be mistaken. The movie does start with the thing saying that Gran Turismo is the most accurate racing sim ever, and I'm like, well, of course you would say that because Sony's making this movie for a PlayStation game. Of course they're going to be like, oh, it's the most accurate. And I talked to Beer Bash Johnson, who's a friend of mine. He's also a streamer. He does a lot of sim racing himself. And I'm trying to remember what games he said were probably the most accurate racing sims, but he did not say Gran Turismo. He said there were some other ones, some obscure ones that I haven't even heard of. He did say Gran Turismo is a dope game, but he didn't say it's the most accurate. So take it with a grain of salt. This movie is kind of an advertisement for the game. And speaking of the game itself, there's kind of a weird thing in the movie, because the movie actually starts by talking about the creator of the Gran Turismo game series, Kazunori Yamauchi. And we see him in the movie a couple of times. And because he's mostly just standing there and not talking, he's usually like staring at a computer screen, or like he meets the main character at one point once the main character gets signed on to Team Nissan. And because he says so little and he doesn't really have much emotion, I thought that they just got the actual guy, that they actually got Kazunori Yamauchi to just play himself in the movie, but they didn't. They actually cast an actor to play him in the movie to not do anything. And like he has no bearing on the plot whatsoever. He's just in there as like, oh, here's the guy who made the game, but he's not really important to it. And I was looking at him like, this feels like an actor. This feels like the cameo that you would just give to the real guy. And the thing is, they did give Kazunori Yamauchi an actual cameo in the movie. I found out later he played a sushi chef in a scene in Tokyo. And I'm like, okay, so you had him to have a cameo in the movie, and so it wasn't a case of he didn't want to be in the movie. It was a case of we didn't want him to play himself because we weren't confident in his ability to play himself, even though the guy they got to play him didn't do anything. It was weird. For other people in the cast, Orlando Bloom is in the movie. He's actually the marketing guy at Nissan who decides to create the GT Academy. And for years, every time I've seen Luke Evans in a movie, I've been like, oh, is that Orlando Bloom? And they're like, no, it's not, but he looks a lot like him. And this is the first time that I've had the inverse. I went into this movie thinking it was Luke Evans the entire movie. Up until the end, when I got to the credits and it said Orlando Bloom, I'm like, oh, okay, the tables have turned. The movie tends to have a lot of the generic, like, sports movie, underdog kind of things. Like, his dad was a professional football player, and so he thinks, oh, you need to get your head away. You need to, like, go do some physical activity outdoors and stop playing video games all day, every day. You should go play football like a man and all that. And I have no idea in reality how supportive or unsupportive his dad was at the start, but and there's like a whole like subplot where he's got, the hometown girl that he falls for, who she feels like she's thrown in as an afterthought because we literally only see her one time early on in the movie, and then she's gone until he has like been signed to Team Nissan. And like they aren't even dating, they just kind of have like a little bit of a flirtation early on, and it's not until he signed on to Team Nissan and he brings her to Tokyo that they start dating. So there's a lot of like, if you pull out a checklist of what do I need to have in my inspirational underdog sports biopic, we've got to have the family drama and we have to have the hometown girl, right? To throw those things in. There's some issues with the movie that don't sit right with me. In particular, there is a scene where during one race, his car catches a wind updrift and is airborne and ends up crashing into the side of the racetrack and kills a spectator. And this is a real event. This actually happened. But the way it's portrayed in the movie is as, like a setback on his motivational journey where he's just like, I killed someone, I can't do this. And like everyone is just like, yeah, you killed someone because racing is dangerous, but you got to get back on the horse or else you'll never be able to race again. Which really bugged me in the way that it was done in the movie, where it's like, we never even find out the name of the person that he killed. Even though, like, they all insist it wasn't your fault. And I haven't looked into the actual accident, so I don't know how true that is. But they were all very insistent. It's like, it was a freak accident. It could have happened to anyone. It just happens to you. And it's not your fault that you killed someone. It's just because racing is dangerous. I later found out that this accident, which is set as like a motivational setback before, the final race where he places on the podium, this accident actually happened years later than that. So they just took an accident where he killed someone from later in his career and reworked it as like an emotional motivational setback, which is a real event where he killed someone. They don't even name who he killed, and they use that person's death to motivate him to later win the podium thing, which is something he had already done at that point in his career. That bugs me. That's pretty skeevy. As for the filming of the racing itself, it's all pretty exciting. There's, like I said, there's a lot of like video game perspective stuff that they throw into it, but not as much as I was expecting. A lot of it is just, really cool camera tricks. I'm sure a lot of it was CGI, but they had, actual stunt driving. Actually, I think the real Jan Mardenborough was a stunt driver playing himself. So he was a stunt driver for the actor who was playing him. Speaking of cameos of people playing themselves, the main character, the real guy, did the stunt driving from, so that's kind of cool. The end of the movie, I actually tweeted about this, and I'm gonna pull that up. I can't believe Gran Turismo unironically did this meme. And it's true. This all, like, except for the flipping off of the audience, basically every other part of this happened, because he did. He placed third at 24 Hours of Le Mans. The idea was we have to prove to the other racers that sim racers can place on the podium, can be just as good as them. And because 24 Hours of Le Mans, it's a relay race. They had 3 drivers, all sim drivers, on their team, and he was the main one. And so they get on the podium, which shows, okay, yeah, we're legitimate drivers. He doesn't place first, obviously. I actually found out that the real race, he placed third in his class, but 9th overall. So it's like, even add this and add 6 more steps. You say Gran Turismo is the most accurate mainstream racing sim? I think that's probably fair. Yeah, because the sims that Beer Bash Johnson was mentioning I hadn't even heard of. Gran Turismo is a mainline game, very popular PlayStation game. I think it was one of their best-selling games for the original PlayStation, so yeah, it makes sense. But as far as a sports movie goes, it's fine. It has its issues, it's kind of generic, but if you're looking for something, you know, vaguely motivational, especially for young kids who play video games and want to make that a career, I guess, you know, show it to them and maybe they'll be inspired to, I don't know, figure out a way to turn Minecraft into a career. But yeah, it's fine. It's not the best movie, but it's all right. I saw people saying it was Neil Blomkamp's best movie. No, it's not. Neil Blomkamp has done better fare than this. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm trying to get my channel monetized, so your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like and subscribe and ring the bell. I stream every Monday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons with a special shout out to Piftle Cakes and Ryan D. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.